Senator John Barrasso is a Republican senator from Wyoming. He's the chairman of the Republican Policy Committee. He's going to be in those meetings today with the president. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for being back with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Soledad. Great to be with you today.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So, it was interesting to listen to Speaker Boehner's assessment of how these meetings are going, because he sort of said, well, this and this, which were completely contradictory. I'm going to play a little bit of what the speaker said.
Republicans want to balance the budget. The president doesn't. The Republicans want to solve our long-term debt problem. The president doesn't. We want to unlock our energy resources to put more Americans back to work. The president doesn't. But having said that, today was a good start. And I hope that these kinds of discussions can continue.
You know what's so funny? When I was watching that press, I literally laughed out loud after he listed all the ways in which it had been pretty terrible, and you guys were far, far apart, clearly. And then you're like, oh, but it was a good start. So my question would be, are you hopeful out of this, considering the long list that the speaker has laid out, which seems not very hopeful?
Well, I welcome the president. I think we're going to have a frank and candid discussion about the key issues facing our country: jobs, the economy, debt, and the spending. And we need to actually get solutions. I wish the president had started doing this, Soledad, 4 years ago instead of just recently. But we need to get solutions. We need to get the country moving ahead. And I welcome opportunities to work in a bipartisan way to get the country moving.
Hey, Senator Chris Freites with National Journal here. When I talk to Republicans on the Hill, they all tell me that the meetings that everyone should be watching are the meetings that the president's having with moderate senators, your colleagues. And I wonder, how hopeful are you that your moderate colleagues could get some kind of deal that could drive a piece of legislation through the Senate and over to the House?
Well, at a time of divided government, that's when you have the best opportunities to really accomplish the big things. And we need to accomplish the big jobs now of making sure that Medicare and Social Security are there, not just for people today, but for the next generation. People have paid into these programs, and for every $1 people have paid in, they're yet getting about $3 out in benefits in terms of Medicare. So we have to reform these programs, and the best way to do it is at a time of divided government. The president, though, has to lead his party to agreeing to the changes that have to be made in an effort to save these programs long term.
Yesterday it was Senator Patty Murray who released the Democrats' budget version, increased tax revenue, ending some of the breaks by closing loopholes, cuts in domestic and also defense spending, new spending, though, on infrastructure. I think we have a graphic of what exactly the budget has, some of the elements in it. $975 billion revenue increase to close those tax loopholes, $975 spending cuts, some domestic, some defense, interest savings as well, $100 billion for road, bridge repairs, and worker training on that list. What do you make in the broad strokes of what the Democrats have now proposed?
Well, it's another $1 trillion of tax increases coming right on the heels of the president's health care law, which is $1 trillion of tax increases. So you take a look at that, and the American taxpayers are saying, we've had enough of taxes. They believe half of the money they send to Washington right now is being wasted. The other problem with Patty Murray's budget is it never gets to balance. Never. Paul Ryan's budget balances in 10 years, and there's a fundamental difference there in terms of the kind of debt that we as a nation continue to have. I was traveling around Wyoming. You go to schools, and they know these students know we continue to borrow a lot of money every day just to stay ahead, and a lot of it we're borrowing from China, and we don't want to continue to do that.
Right, but Paul Ryan's budget balances in 10 years because the big chunk in the middle of it is killing Obamacare, which people have said, I think reasonably, is not going to happen. So sure, it balances, but that's not going to happen.
Well, Paul Ryan's budget balances, and actually spending increases every year under Paul Ryan's budget, just doesn't increase as fast as it does in the Democrats' budget. But the Federal Reserve, Soledad, last week came out with a report that talks about the impacts of the health care law on the economy and on jobs, and it is hurting jobs. This is the Federal Reserve in their monthly report talking about the bad impact of the health care law because of the consequences within the law, so that businesses, due to the uncertainty, aren't hiring. When they do hire, they're hiring part-time workers instead of full-time workers, and that's why we're still at almost 8% unemployment in this country.
Can I ask you a quick question before I let you go? You're a featured speaker at CPAC, which starts today, and two biggies who are not invited to CPAC would be the New Jersey governor, Chris Christie, and Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. What do you make of their omissions?
Well, yeah, I'm not on the committee that actually does the invitations.
Right, but still.
I'm delighted to be invited. They're focused on kind of the next generation. There's going to be a very youthful crowd looking to hear about the view for the future, and I'm looking forward to visiting with them about the issues of health care and the significant impacts of the health care law on young people, which is very devastating for young Americans as they start suffering the consequences and the expenses of the president's health care law.
No, and I recognize that you're not the guy who makes the invitation list, but I'm curious, as someone who's featured, and those are two big names, and I think it's quite remarkable that they're not on the list. What do you think personally?
Well, I'm not going to decide on who gets invited and who doesn't. I welcome all conservative ideas and a lot of ideas to come up with the best solutions to move our country ahead.
Senator John Barrasso, nice to have you, sir. Always a pleasure to talk to you. We appreciate your time.
You tried.
Thank you, Sullivan.